What's up, veteran? Stacy Allen here, and today is a special show. I've got my good friend here, Eric, the bearded vet from United Veterans Assistance. We're going to have a great conversation. Let's go. What's going on, Eric? Man, it's so good to see you, brother. How you doing?
Stacy, it's great to see you, brother. Doing good. How about yourself?
I am doing fantastic. Man, it's been a long time. I know we've chatted a little bit here and there over the years, but man, we've been working together for 6, 7+ years, something like that.
Oh yeah. It's been close to about 7 years, and it's always great, to reconnect with people that you've worked in the industry before. You know their characteristics, you know their background. It makes the kind of the working part of it that much even more enjoyable when you're able to do it with people that you know and love.
Yeah, yeah, I couldn't have said that better myself. Hey, before we jump into the conversation, I got a question for you that a lot of people, they come to me, they actually call me about it, and they want to know about this majestic beard that you have. How long did it take you to grow that thing?
So it's real. It's all mine. And it's funny. One day, so I've had a beard for probably the last 13 years, and the length probably around 8 years for the length. And one day it was just growing it out, and it was just like let me just see what happens if I just let it go. And it just started growing and kind of had a mind of its own. It's funny because as long as it is, it was about 6 inches longer a couple months ago. I cut it down. It just you know from a day to day perspective, once it gets that long, it kind of just starts getting in the way. But that's the thing, is you just if you're gonna go the beard, you got to let it go, and you got to just let it be its own entity, right? And that's kind of where the name came from. And you'll remember when we worked together 7 years ago, it was one of those things where the name took and it stuck, and it became an identity on its own. So
Yeah, for sure. I mean, that's who you are. So you're never going to be able to shave now, right? You lose your whole identity.
that's right. It's part of the identity. So yeah, no, and it's one of those things where it's relatable, right? A lot of veterans can identify with, Eric the bearded vet. It's something that they can relate to, they can identify with, and it helps, especially with connecting with them. It may be a nickname, but it's something memorable that when veterans can search and identify, it helps them connect. And that's one of the biggest things in our line of work, is being able to connect with our vets, to gain their trust, earn their respect, and assist them in their claims process.
Yeah, so let's talk a little bit about that, the claims process. Now I know that you're working for a company called United Veterans Assistance. Can you tell us a little bit about that and what you're doing over there?
Yeah, so United Veterans Assistance, we're a group of fellow disabled vets, and we've done this for years. We do this every day to assist them in increasing their VA disability benefits. And the way that we do this is we educate the veterans, we assist them through the process, we help them build out a roadmap and identify, what claims they could and should file for. The nice part about it with us is, unlike a lot of other companies out there, we don't charge them anything to get started. They wouldn't even owe us a single penny unless we do what we say we can, which is help them increase their VA disability rating. And the nice part too is, as we're identifying and looking through their records, and building out that roadmap, if we see that they may need some additional medical evidence, a medical diagnosis, a medical nexus letter, we can refer them over to you at Valor Health and allow your medical professionals to assist them in getting those documentations. And one of the other benefits of working with us you know that they won't find at any other places, we actually cover their fees up front for the medical evidence. So that's one of the biggest advantages of working with us, is they're not having to come out of pocket for some of these expenses, which is huge. And when you're talking about a disabled vet, a lot of them, their income is very tight, and being able to assist them in this way to where we can add it to the end once their claims approved and invoice them out, it makes the biggest difference.
Yeah, man. I will tell you, when Eli, the CEO of United Veterans Assistance, and I first started having conversations. It was over a year ago, and he told me that he wanted to go ahead and take care of those fees up front for the veterans. I was like, wow, that's putting it out there. That's really putting your money where your mouth is, because really all the risk is on the company and nothing on the veteran. And I think that's absolutely amazing. I think for a lot of companies that's really hard to do, but it's amazing that he's able to do that and that UVA is able to do that right now.
Well, and
Um,
that also puts a little bit more credibility on us to let them know that, you're not just a number. We're not just here to file frivolous claims for the sake of it. We're doing this to make sure that every claim we file, it's a legitimate claim. We can make sure that we have the correct evidence to give you the best chances of that claim being approved. And not only that, it shows that we're just as vested in the claim as the veteran is, and it's a partnership. You win, we win, and that's the best way to look at it.
that's right. So veterans watching this, how can they reach out?
So you can go to unitedveteransassistance.com, um, fill out the form. We've got a very good form on there that allows you to kind of select your where you're at in your claims process. If this is the first time, if it's you're looking to file an increase, we just ask a couple questions, what your current disability rating is, and when you submit that form, it comes over to us. We'll reach out to you and kind of see if we're a good fit. The nice part about it too is there's no pressure, on our end. At the end of the day, we're just fellow disabled vets wanting to help, our veteran community to get the benefits they deserve. And at the end of our conversation, if this isn't a right fit for you, no worries. We can part as friends, but I just want to make sure that you have all the evidence that you need to make an informed decision on the company that you want to work with. And like I said, the other thing that makes us different and sets us apart is not only on the claims process, but once you get rated, we also explain what additional benefits come available to you. Because a lot of veterans, they hear VA disability, and the first thing they think of is that compensation, and which the compensation part's great. It is great, but there's a lot of other benefits that a lot of veterans don't even realize that they qualify for. Once you hit that 30% mark, you can add your dependents to your pay. Once you hit that 50% disability mark, depending on what state you're in, like in Texas, you get the disabled veteran license plates. At 70%, the VA covers all of your medical issues and your prescriptions. And then when you get to that 100% permanent and total, not only do you get all your medical is taken care of, but you then get dental that becomes available to you by the VA. Your dependents and all get qualify for Champ VA health insurance. So we help educate them on the additional benefits as they could become available to make sure that they're able to take advantage of every benefit, not only the compensation that they qualify for.
Yeah, that's amazing. And like you said, the compensation is phenomenal. Finally getting, compensated for what's going on with you, disabilities caused by your service. But those other benefits are really, you can't put a price tag on some of those, some of the educational benefits for
Oh yeah.
your dependents as well. I know my youngest daughter, she used Chapter 35 benefits before she ended up going in the military herself. But yeah, it's absolutely amazing.
Yeah, it's life changing. I mean, and the difference is, I can talk from my experiences as well because my daughter is using not only Hazelwood for being a Texas veteran, but she's also using the Chapter 35. My wife was able to go back to school to use the Chapter
Yeah.
35 and Hazelwood. So it's a big difference, especially when you're talking about sending your kids to school without any financial burden. Even once they graduate, there's no student loans to repay, there's nothing else. So it is life changing in a sense that these are additional benefits that are saving you money, and you should definitely take advantage of every single one that's available.
Yeah, we talk about this is not only life changing for the veteran and his family, but it's truly generational life changing, right? It really does go on down the line. So my suggestion to any veteran out there that's wondering, do they qualify or do they deserve these benefits? Reach out to someone like Eric over at UVA. We'll throw his website back up there again, but reach over to someone and ask, um, do I qualify for this?
Yeah,
Right?
and you know that's the biggest thing that I tell veterans. A lot of the biggest misconception that a lot of veterans have is that they don't qualify, or maybe they're not as bad to get the VA disability rating and benefits. And the one thing that I always tell them is don't sell yourself short, and don't think that just because another veteran may be worse off than you are, that you don't deserve these benefits. Every veteran deserves some type of benefit. Now, does every veteran deserve 100%? No. Not every veteran deserves it, but getting properly rated for what you deserve is crucial because right now, I'm 40 years old. I still consider myself being very young. And one of the conditions that I'm rated for is hearing loss. And I have a 0%. But where that becomes important is as I get older, my hearing is going to get worse as life goes on,
Right.
but the VA is always going to take care of that for me. So, you may get a 0%, you may get, 10, 20, 30. But the thing about that is getting rated correctly now will have big impact to you later on as you age, as those conditions get worse. You can file for increases. You can make sure that you're getting properly taken care of. And that's the biggest thing when it comes to the VA disability process is get rated and get what you deserve now. And even though that may not be 100%, who's to say 5, 10, 15 years from now, it turns into that. And that's why it's so important. And, one of the other biggest misconceptions that veterans have is if I get rated, I'm taking benefits away from another veteran. And that's totally false. And actually, if more veterans got the benefits they deserve, what that would mean is more budget next year, even
Hmm.
more benefits every year after that to help even more veterans. And I wish that veterans would look at it that way rather than seeing it that they're taking benefits away from another veteran.
Man, that's so well put, and you're right. It's so misunderstood. I hear that all the time talking about. I don't want to take away from somebody else who really deserves it, right? So, yeah, such a good way to lay that out. Well, while we're talking about the benefits, I want to flip over and plug Valor Health just for a minute. So, understanding the claims process is one thing, and working with somebody that can kind of guide you through that process is one thing. But having the evidence to support your claim really is one of the most important things you can do when filing your claim. Because if you're just filing on a hope and a whim, you know, that's that's not a strategy. You really have to set yourself up for success. And one of the ways to do that is one, make sure that all your documents are in order, right? And part of that is getting your medical evidence. And if you have a diagnosis for a certain condition, great, but there's more to it than that. So the VA requires three things, right? Three things to be service connected. One is an in-service event or an illness or condition that happened while you were on active duty. Two, you have to have a current diagnosis. And three, you have to have what's called a nexus or a medical nexus. And what that is a connection, a medical opinion that connects those first two things together. That's all it is. So a lot of veterans can show that something happened on active duty, right? They hurt their back or their knee or something on a ruck. And they could show a current diagnosis. And that's hey, I've got an ACL tear and I've had it for years. But what they may be missing is that nexus, and that's that medical opinion saying, yeah, Joe's knee that he's dealing with today is at least as likely as not, or more likely than not, caused by that injury that happened on his ruck while he was on active duty, right? And so, with that statement, um, really sets the veteran up for success.
It does. And I think that's one of the biggest missing pieces that a lot of veterans forget is having that medical documentation, right? And that medical evidence to help support the claim. Because a lot of veterans, they may have this information in their records, but they don't know how to connect it, or they miss that nexus. And you see it in denial letters all the time, is there's no connection, there's no nexus, like you're missing that crucial part. And a lot of veterans get frustrated and they stop at that point. They see that denial and they just get frustrated. They're like, okay, I'm done. The VA is not going to connect me. But if they just had that medical nexus letter, that could have been the deciding factor of being service connected or not. Or if you did get approved without it, could have been the missing link of you being rated at 10% or 70%. And that's where the biggest disconnect happens with a lot of veterans, is one, that they're not educated enough to understand why or how the impact can be with or without having it. Two, they don't see the value. And at the end of the day, they're not cheap, right? And you don't want a cheap medical nexus letter. There's a lot of companies out there that do it. You can Google and you can find hundreds of them. At the end of the day, are they going to know the exact terminology? Are they going to know how to actually connect your current condition to your time in service? And are you getting the value for your money? And that's the biggest thing, where going to a reputable company and working with them is going to make the biggest difference in the world. I could go into ChatGPT right now and plug in and have it spit out the letters to me, sure. But it's not going to be written by a medical professional who knows exactly the terminology and how to write it and have that backing up the claim. And that's the biggest difference. Is there's a lot of AI companies out there now that claim to do this in the VA space. But you're not going to have that credentials behind it supporting the claim and giving you that extra value that you need. And I think that's the biggest difference in using, a company like Valor Health to have that accreditation, to have that backing of the knowledge, the experience, and knowing, how to assist veterans in this process. Because just like us here at UVA, Valor Health is also a company of fellow disabled vets. So we've all been through the process ourselves. We know what it's like to be denied. We know what it's like to fight. It took me 8 years of fighting on my own to get to 100%. And when you can work with companies like UVA and Valor Health, who can take that time from years to months, that is something that you can't put a price on, because and I tell veterans all the time, think of it this way. If you go out and fight on your own and you spend 5, 6, 10 years fighting to finally get it, first off, congratulations, you got there. But look at all the time you wasted. Look at all the money you left on the table for countless denials, countless waiting, to where you could work with a company like ours, have us assist you, explain the process, let you know exactly the evidence that you need, and file a claim and get it back in a couple months. That is huge.
Yeah. I talk to vets all the time. Well, this company, I can do it for a couple $100 cheaper, or just like you were saying. But, some you can take the public transportation to get where you need to go, or you can call the limo, right? So you may end up at the same place, but one's going to take a lot longer and be a lot more uncomfortable getting to your destination, right? So I will speak on Valor Health. We're not the cheapest. We don't do $100 Nexus letters like some of the things out here. So we have absolutely top-notch providers that are seeing face to face with the veterans that they serve, and putting out quality Nexus letters, and we have a very high success rate with what we do. Otherwise, we tell the veteran we can't do it. The information's not there. We're going to be straight with them up front. We're not going to write a Nexus letter for something that's not there.
Well,
Right?
and that's true. And, I can attest. So a veteran we just helped, who's actually happens to be a very good friend of mine, used a company before us, had a Nexus letter written, got rated, but they only rated him at a 10% rating, when We re-looked at everything, looked at his current situation, everything he submitted to that company, went through Valor Health, the exact same condition, the same evidence that he provided to that other company, the letter that we got back and the quality was night and day difference. I mean, completely night and day. And the difference is Valor Health took the time to thoroughly review all the documents that were submitted, did a good job of not only listening, but to him when he spoke to the provider, but was then able to accurately put that down into a letter that is going to possibly get him a 70% rating for the exact same condition that he had and paid for a Nexus letter previously. And that's the difference. Like you said, you know, you can go out there and you can get a Nexus letter. There's going to be doctors that will give it to you fairly cheap, but you get what you pay for. And at the end of the day, if you're going to pay for something, you might as well pay for it, get it done right the first time, and not have to worry about it again.
Yeah, well said. Well said. Well, Eric, listen, I want to continue this conversation, but I know that you and I are going to be jumping on these more often and having all kinds of discussions about different topics. But as we're kind of winding down here, what piece of advice would you give a veteran that may see this, that hasn't started the process, that has no idea what to do?
So, the biggest piece of advice I can give you right now, if you're thinking about filing and you haven't yet, and you're not sure if, even if you're going to, put in the intent to file in right now. That intent to file is going to secure your back pay date. You have 12 months from the time you put it in to file a claim. And what that does is that keeps that time that you're thinking about it, gathering evidence, figuring out what to do to secure that back pay date from the time you file. And that's the biggest piece of advice that I can give to anybody right now watching this and on the fence about whether you contact us to work with us or you try it on your own first. Get that intent to file in now and secure your back pay date.
Man, I couldn't have said that better myself. And that's what ways can if a veteran wants to file a intent to file, they don't even know what it is, right? How do they do that?
So the easiest way to do it, call the VA. All you have to do is call 1-800-827-1000. Tell
Yeah.
them you want to put your intent to file in. They will do it. Done. You'll get a letter in a couple of days in the mail saying your intent to file is in. If you already have a VA.gov account, log on, go to file a claim. As soon as you click to file, if that's your intent to file, you'll get the little number. Don't do anything past that point. You don't have to add any disabilities and anything else. That's your intent to file. You're done. Those are the two simplest ways to get it in. But like I said, for people who don't have a VA.gov account, don't know how to do things online, call the number. They'll put it in for you, and you're done.
Right on. And after they do that intent to file, they need to reach out to Eric, the bearded vet over at UVA, right?
That's right.
Down here on the screen. So Eric can have that conversation, or one of the advisors over there can have that conversation of maybe what that veteran could or should be doing,
Oh yeah,
right?
and we love to have those conversations. I love to have those conversations with veterans every day. And even if you're not sure if you qualify, let us be the deciding factor on that. We'll hear your story, we'll understand what you've been through, what you've seen, and we'll let you know. If we think that you have a viable case to move forward with. Because, like I said, at the end of the day, not every veteran would qualify, does qualify, or will get benefits. But unless you ask, you'll never know. And that's the biggest thing that hurts a lot of veterans is disqualifying themselves before they've even talked to anybody.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. So the other thing that I want to point out, listen, if you're not working with Eric and UVA and you're working with a VSO or an accredited agent or an attorney or trying to do this on your own, feel free to reach out to me and my team over at valorhealth.net. We can certainly help you anyway, even if you're not working with Eric, right? So we have partnerships with tons of VSOs, accredited agents, attorneys, and other coaching firms. So valorhealth.net, reach out, and we'll help you from there. Any parting words, Eric?
Stacy, this is a pleasure. I look forward to speaking to you again, making this a regular occurrence, and it's always great talking to you, man.
Yeah, I love it, man. Good seeing you. Good seeing your beard. And we'll connect next time. All right, Bets. Have a great day. Take
We'll
care.
see y'all. Bye bye.